One of the things that occurs again and again in your book is your sense of the writer's vocation as as being fundamentally about truth telling and a responsibility to the truth, and which connects with your sense of place. I know you said that you couldn't ever write about a place unless you'd been there. Could you say a bit about what you mean when you speak of the writer's calling, entailing first of all this responsibility to the truth?
Well, yes, maybe a metaphor for that would be if you were, say, a military commander, if you happen to be, and you had to guide your troops through a minefield, you'd want to be awfully accurate and be honest to them about the dangers and all the rest that could happen through this minefield. And I think in some ways the world is like a minefield to young people. So if you distort it, if you're dishonest about it, if you sanitize it, they're going to confront all that in the real world rather than, say, in the metaphor of writing. And it can be a great shock if they haven't experienced it in a secondhand way through fiction or through poetry or through essays. And then even John Calvin said, no matter where it comes from, if it's the truth, it's from God, because he's the source of truth. So I've always liked that.
And I know Calvin is someone who you have read and pondered deeply. And I have to tell you that when Wendy and I came to the Midwest 17 years ago, I encountered this strange phenomenon, which is I kept meeting these bright young people. They were mostly men, but they weren't all young men, who were reading Jonathan Edwards and John Piper, and some of them were actually going to the source and reading Calvin. But and these were mostly high school students, believe it or not, and college students. This phenomenon has simply grown so that now people have written books about it.
Yes.
Young, Restless, and Reformed. A real resurgence of a kind of serious Reformed thinking. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your discovery of Calvin, how that has influenced your work, how you think he is sometimes distorted in the way that he is seen and described.
Yes, I think that I could say that as a young Christian, when I was not so young, but as I was coming into the church again, let me just preface by saying I was raised Roman Catholic, and when in my 30s, working on Beyond the Bedroom Wall, I started reading the Bible a lot to find out what those people believed in back, in earlier generations. And I was called to faith by the Spirit. And then I started looking for a church, and the one that I found most congenial at that time was the Presbyterian Church. And of course I came carrying that same baggage, the polemics about Calvin. And as I think the most brilliant writer on Calvin is Marilyn Robinson in The Death of Adam, where she points out how historians distorted, purposely it seems, his views because they're hostile to him. For instance, Calvin never emphasized election, and that's one of the big problems many people have with him. He said that is something that's so impossible to discern or to explain that we must leave it in the mind of God. And then I started reading Calvin's commentaries, and I don't think I've read quite such a loving, gentle commentator. Because usually, a person's point of view starts arising and they get pretty insistent about this. But he was very gentle, and it just opened my mind to my own writing then, to discover, he said, the most important thing in all of life is Jesus at the center of your life, and then that you love everybody as he loved others.